Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 28th episode of Don't Forget the Popcorn. So, I was looking over Empire Magazine's list of 100 best movies of all time, and I decided to go over and react to their picks with you guys. Now, I have my pros and cons of this list, the good and the bad. With film, I do believe what makes it great is we all have different tastes and choices. It's a very subjective passion that we have. It's not like sports where we can measure greatness to a degree with statistics. But any sports fan knows that only goes so far when debating that in the world. Empire is a UK based magazine, and a big part of their market is film reviews, lists, rankings, and discussions, all that. This list is a compilation of readers' picks and staff picks. Okay. So that's cool because it is a nice blend. So you get the general public and then you get some obviously some more film savvy people. So I will be very conversational in this. All right. So I'm just trying to run through this as quick as possible. I'm not gonna try and spend too many time on one movie, just go over it real quick, kind of say whether I think it does or doesn't belong. And, this is just one man's opinion, just because I may think a film on this list should be considered in the best or greatest movies of all time doesn't mean that it's right or wrong. You may think this list is great. You may absolutely hate it. You may think it's okay. And there's no right or wrong answer. So now let's get into Empire's greatest movies of all time. All right, so we're gonna start at number 100. They got Reservoir Dogs, Quentin Tarantino's first movie. A great film, a film I do love. Um, does it necessarily belong on 100 greatest films of all time list? It could, maybe, but you know, obviously you don't want to load one list up with one director. I do think, I'm sure that, Pulp Fiction is definitely going to be on this list, I'm guessing. So if I'm picking two Tarantino movies to put on 100 of all time list, I'd probably go with something else over this, but this is a great film and it's definitely one of the best directorial debuts of all time. So, Reservoir Dogs, great film pick. I'm not going to say it shouldn't be on a list. Let's see what else we got. Groundhog Day. What a great film. This is a classic, one of the funniest movies ever. I love Bill Murray, huge Bill Murray fan. He is one of the funniest dudes ever. So for me, Groundhog Day is definitely a great film. I this movie is actually quite influential. I guess in some worlds it could belong on the greatest films of all time list, but with only 100, I don't know if I would put this film on 100 greatest list. Now, if this is on your favorites list, I can totally see that. This is definitely, a feel good, funny movie. Actually, it's quite depressing at times, but it is a funny movie. So I definitely get it if it's on your personal favorite list. But if we're talking greatest or best films, I don't know. I probably would leave this off. 98, Paddington 2. Paddington 2, let me tell you, I didn't see the first Paddington until a little bit recently, a few years ago. Uh, I did see Paddington 2 right after I saw 1, and I loved both of them. Love them both. They are freaking hilarious. They are great films. Um, Paddington 2, I cannot lie, it is absolutely one of the best kids movies I've ever seen. If you guys have seen The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, there's a part where Nicolas Cage and Pedro Pascal's characters are talking about their three favorite films, and Pedro Pascal's character says Paddington 2, and Nicolas Cage is like, "Are you kidding?" And they watch it, and he's like, "Oh my god, it's so good, it's so funny." Paddington 2, I don't know if I would put it in my 100 greatest films, but I would probably put it in like a 200 or a 250 list. Definitely a great film, but out of 100, I would probably leave it off. 97, Amelie. Oh, great French movie. This is definitely one of the best feel-good movies ever made. Amelie is a big boy for international cinema. It was definitely one of the biggest international releases in recent times. Amelie is definitely one of the great films, but there I could just rattle off, 5 to 10 French films off the top of my head that I would take over Amelie if we're making a greatest of all time list or a best list. Amelie is another one of those ones I could easily see it being on someone's personal favorite list, a feel-good movie that they love. It definitely is a heartwarming film, and Amelie is such a cute, fun character. I love her, adore her, she's great. But, on a greatest of all time list, Amelie probably wouldn't make my cut, but it's definitely one I love. I got this thing on Blu-ray. 96, Brokeback Mountain. Now, this film here, I do think deserves to be on the 100 greatest films of all time list. This movie revolutionized and really put the LGBT films in the mainstream. This film really, I think, personally broke down a lot of barriers in recent years and, understanding relationships between same sexes. And the acting in this movie, the direction, Ang Lee brought it. He brought his A game here. Heath Ledger and Jake Gyllenhaal were freaking amazing, bro. I mean, honestly, you guys gotta love this movie for the sole fact that if it wasn't for this movie, Heath Ledger likely wouldn't have played the Joker. So, yes, Brokeback Mountain. If you have not seen Brokeback Mountain, I think it's on Netflix right now. Watch that thing. One of the best movies ever made. I will agree with this one. All right, 95. Donnie Darko. Now, this movie is a huge cult film. I saw this film when it first came out. I was quite young. I think this movie is what, like 99 or 2000 or something like that. It's an old film. Well, not old, but it's been out for a good 20 plus years. And I saw it when I was quite young. And my boy, yo, he loved this movie, so we watched it all the time. And it is a good film. I do like it. It's a trippy boy, but I do like Jake Gyllenhaal in here, and I love Maggie Gyllenhaal too. She's one of my favorites. So I do like the film. It's great, but for me, it would not. It definitely wouldn't make a best or greatest all time list. That not for me. But I definitely know a bunch of people that this is one of their favorite films, and I fully understand it. 94, Scott Pilgrim versus the World. Scott Pilgrim, I love Scott Pilgrim. Scott Pilgrim is one of those fun, quotable films. Scott Pilgrim, Edgar Wright, it's crazy because while I was getting ready for this video, I was actually watching Baby Driver, which I actually love. Baby Driver is such a great movie. I personally think Baby Driver is better than Scott Pilgrim, but that's just me. Scott Pilgrim is fun. It's got a lot of great actors in it. Everybody having a great time doing this film, and it's based off I think a video game. I'm pretty sure. I never got to play it, or it's either a video game or a comic book. I'm sorry, I don't know the source material, but it's a fun movie. I like it. I know a lot of it's one of those another big cult film. I know a lot of people that love this movie. It's one of their personal favorites, and I totally get it if it's on your favorites list. Definitely wouldn't make my 100 greatest films list, though. Just me. 93. Portrait of a Lady on Fire. Now, this movie here, this is a newer film. This movie's only I think 4 years old now. But this one's hard to argue with. This movie is, first of all, the look of this film is beautiful. It looks like a freaking painting. This movie looks so amazing. The colors in this movie, oh my god, they'll blow you away. Second, it's it's a powerful film, and it's a very close, intimate film that it just pulls you right in. And another one of those big LGBT movies that kind of blew up, and it got a lot of love and recognition. And this film has actually been buzzing through a lot of circles recently. People, I'm pretty sure it was pretty high up on BBC's poll that they just did. They do every 10 years. So this movie is making its rounds, and it hasn't been out very long, so it's hard to say. I think a movie needs a good 10 years at least before you can really assess it as to whether it's one of the greatest of all time or not. So, with it not being out that long, I just don't know if it's there yet, but I definitely think it has the potential. So, Portrait of a Lady on Fire, I'm gonna leave with the to be determined, but there are a bunch of good foreign LGBT films that are a lot older than this that a lot of people just don't know about yet. All right, 92, Leon the Professional. Now, I'm 100% biased with this movie because this is one of my personal favorite freaking films. I freaking love Leon. Leon is one of my favorite movies. Um, Dude, young Natalie Portman, oh my god, she's amazing in this film. One of her best roles, one of my favorite actresses. And Jean Reno is freaking awesome in this. This movie is if you've never seen Leon, that needs to go to the top of your watch list, yo. Kick back, relax, and watch Leon one night. It is such a great watch. This movie is definitely making my personal favorite. If I'm making a personal favorite 100 films, and eventually I will make those videos, 100 favorite personal films and 100 favorite greatest. I still think I have more movies to watch before I can make my greatest list, but they will come eventually on this channel. But I gotta say, Leon, for me, man, it's hard to say it doesn't belong on the greatest of all times list. I'm actually gonna say, this may sound biased, but I'm gonna go ahead and say it should be on the greatest of all time list. 91, Logan. Oh, one of the best comic book movies ever. Such a great film, a fun film, a heartfelt film, a Western. Hugh Jackman going hard. They took the risk here, gave this the appropriate R rating, and it paid off, man. This movie was a huge success, critically, commercially. Awesome movie. I love this film. But when it comes to greatest of all time lists, greatest, I think it's really hard to really include hero and comic book movies just because there's so many of them and some are better than others. They're like almost their own thing. And even though if I was gonna put a couple comic book movies on a greatest of all time list, there are a couple I could think of that will go on here. And there's one or two that I do think are appropriate. But Logan, I would leave off, but this is a freaking awesome movie. Number 90, The Terminator. One of my personal favorite films. This movie is amazing. I love this film. I'm one of the rare guys who I may like the Terminator more than the Terminator 2. I might. I don't know. I go back and forth all the time, but the Terminator is easily in my probably top 15 favorite films of all time. And I do think it should be in the top greatest films of all time. Where it's at 90, I do think is a good spot. I don't think it should be very, very high. But this film was quite influential and was a huge, huge, huge pop culture icon. So, the weight and significance this film still has to this day, I do think it belongs here. 89, No Country for Old Men. All right, guys, we all know this is one of the best movies of all time, okay? I don't really even need to talk about it. Everyone's seen this movie. Yes, it should be on this list. And I do like where they got it at 89. 88, Titanic. Titanic. Funny thing with Titanic. I saw this film when I was literally, I think I was 6 years old. Maybe, yeah, I think I was 6. My mother took me to see this film at a late showing on a Sunday night. The movie's 3+ hours, okay? I didn't get home until, I don't know, probably 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Now, my 6-year-old body was used to going to bed at like 8:30, 9 o'clock. Went to bed, still had to get up, go to school the next day. It was one of the worst days of my life, and I'll never forget that. So I always have a little bit of a hate relationship with Titanic. On top of that, I do think it is possibly one of the most overrated films ever made. Is it a good film? Yes. Okay. Huge pop culture film. Big, it made the huge splash in the world. Go Titanic, go James Cameron. But come on, you gonna put Titanic before the Terminator? Titanic, I get why it's on this list. I understand why it's on this list. I really do. With the Titanic, no. Titanic, man, come on, man. It's just at this point when I watch it now, I've seen this movie so many times. When I watch it now, it just feels like it feels so cheesy. It just does. I don't know why. I don't know. It's okay, but I do think Leonardo and Kate Winslet are absolutely amazing in this. They're two of the best actors of our time. 87, The Exorcist. Whoo! One of the scariest movies ever made. I love this film. This is easily a film deserving to be on a top 100 list. I would probably even move this up a little higher, not a lot higher. Probably maybe in the like mid 70s somewhere. I don't know. But Exorcist, huge influential film. Without The Exorcist owned the 70s. It set the tone and the standard in the 70s. What it took to make a good horror film. So you gotta love The Exorcist. Definitely deserves to be on this list. 86, Black Panther. I mean, same thing like I just said with the hero films before. Black Panther was a fun movie. It's a great movie. I loved it. I thought Chadwick Boseman was amazing. I thought Michael B. Jordan was amazing. Angela Bassett was amazing. The freaking set designs, the costume designs. It was a cultural revolution and definitely a huge film, for black people, and they loved it, and it was definitely something big for them. Um, so I think it was a great film culturally. Pop culture references, I understand all that. But is the movie that good to be deserving to put on a greatest films of all time list? I'm gonna say no. Although I do love Black Panther, great film, watch it anytime. I don't think it deserves to be on a greatest of all time list. Especially, I'm already gonna be biased because it's a hero film. So hero films, I'm a little weird on. 85, Shaun of the Dead. No, you guys got to remember this is Empire, so this is a British magazine, and Shaun of the Dead, Edgar Wright, British films. Shaun of the Dead is one of the funniest movies ever. I love zombie films, and I love a funny zombie film. And Shaun of the Dead is definitely one of the funniest. Sorry, Phil. If you see Shaun of the Dead, you could probably quote it. It's silly as hell. Um, as far as the greatest film ever made, I do think there's room for comedy. I'm not gonna sit here and say every film on this list should be these deep, grabbing films, or they should have all. I think they should have, you know, left their mark on the industry in some kind of way. And Shaun of the Dead, I just don't know if it's done that, but at this point, it does have a very strong following. So this is one of those films. I don't know. It could be a coin toss. Um, I'm not gonna say it doesn't belong on a list, but I probably wouldn't make mine. But a great funny film, love it. 84, Lost in Translation. Ooh, such a good movie. Sofia Coppola. Um, she's a great director. Of course, she's tied to the great Francis, so obviously, she was gonna probably have some talent in her, and she's very talented filmmaker. This is probably one of the greatest films ever made. There's a lot of movies like this though that are just as good. I think personally, Lost in Translation just blew up. It had a big name in Bill Murray and a big up and coming name with Scarlett, but their relationship in this movie is awesome. It's a fun movie. It's a total vibe. This is a movie you just put on and kick back to, have a good time with. So I will go ahead and say Lost in Translation should be on list, and I do like where it's at 84. 83, Thor Ragnarok. Hero film. Thor Ragnarok was fun. I had a blast. I saw this in theaters when it came out, and I had a fun time seeing it. My girl Kate Blanchett's in here, one of my favorites. Jeff Goldblum. I thought the Hawk was a great addition to this film. Taika Waititi did his thing. Great film. It's fun. Definitely doesn't belong on a best all time list, though, man. I'm not putting Thor Ragnarok on here when I only got 100 spots. All right. 82, The Usual Suspects. Freaking love this movie. Great film. Great performance from Kevin Spacey. One of the best. And I love Benicio in this movie too. I like the young Benicio. I like the way he played his character. This is a great film. Great crime movie. The Usual Suspects. It's one. If I was gonna leave it off of a greatest of all times list, the reason I would is because it's a film you gotta watch it in gaps. You can't watch it too close. Like you can't watch it on Monday and then watch it next Monday. The magic, you gotta let the magic wear off a little bit because it's one of those films. Once you've seen it once and you know the twist, it's not gonna hold the weight on second viewing. But it's definitely a good movie to watch for someone that's never seen it before. So, but this one, I do love this film, but I would leave it off the list. Number 81, Psycho. Come on now. Of course, Psycho belongs on this list, and it's way too low at 81. I think Psycho should be moved up to at least the mid 50s. Psycho, one of the most influential films of all time from one of the best filmmakers we've ever had in Hitchcock. If you guys have not seen Psycho, then whew, I don't know what you're doing. Psycho is one of the trippiest, scariest. The twist in it, even if after you know what's gonna happen, the twist still gets you because everything is just done so well in this film. So Psycho, absolutely deserving to be on this list. 80, L.A. Confidential. Ooh, what a fun movie! Great crime noir film with a great cast. I love Russell Crowe in this movie. Love Kevin Spacey in this movie. Um, this film is a fun, gritty little 50s noir style cop film or yeah cop movie, and it's one of those films that I like a lot. I got this on Blu-ray. Um, I can watch this film anytime, man. It's a gritty one. It grabs you in, it locks you in. I might throw this on later. But when you only got 100 spots, I just don't know if LA Confidential should be on here. I will say it got overlooked by freaking Titanic. You know what I mean? They came out. They were both the big boys at the award season that year, and Titanic, blew everything out the way. But I would definitely watch this over Titanic, and it looks like Empire would too. So greatest of all time, though. I gotta leave LA Confidential off though, man. There's only 100 spots. All right, 79. E.T. I'm gonna tell you guys right now, E.T. I got a real love hate relationship with this film. I like E.T. I think it's a total vibe. E.T. is one of those like movies you can kick back when you just kind of want to set a mood. I do love that about the film, but I don't love the film that much. It's a good movie, man. It's like don't get me wrong, but it's not one of Spielberg's best. I don't think. It's man. First things first. For a young kid, man, it's a heavy subject matter, man. Like the ending is pretty freaking brutal. Um, but it's a cool adventure movie, man. If you're a kid, if you show this to a 6-year-old kid right now, 5-year-old kid, they would probably love it. Even a 2023 kid would probably love it, But I definitely think it's a movie you should, watch. But I don't know if the hype is warranted. I'm sorry. I know a lot of people disagree with me. I gotta leave ET off this list. 78. A lot of people are not gonna like what I have to say about this movie. 78, In the Mood for Love. Okay, In the Mood for Love. Now I saw this movie later in life. I was a little bit older. And I had heard about this movie and I've been reading about this movie. And when I finally sat down and watched this movie, I was so excited to watch this movie. I was beyond excited. And I saw the film, and by the end of it, I just felt okay about it. I didn't love the film. I didn't hate the film, but I didn't understand why everyone else loved it so much. And I also did see a lot of the things that people were talking about. The cinematography is great. The score is great. It's got a cool soundtrack. It's a vibey movie, man. It's well acted. Everything about the film works, except I just found it kind of boring. That's just me though, and I know I'm gonna get crucified by the deep cinephiles for this, but In the Mood for me on a personal level isn't one of my favorite films, and I I know it's on like every single list if you look at any list of the greatest films. But for me, In the Mood for Love, man, I could leave it. I could leave it. Now, that is not to say that I do understand why people like it. I can't say that I don't understand. I do. I do understand. It's a vibe, and it's a different type of movie, and it's got my guy in it, my man Tony Lang. I love Tony Lang, one of my favorite actors. So I get it, but just not for your boy. All right, 77, Return of the Jedi. Okay, now I am a big Star Wars fan. Okay, I am. I'm not gonna lie. If you guys have followed me on this channel, I did a Star Wars rank, so you guys already heard me talk about that if you've seen that video. Return of the Jedi is a great film. I freaking love Return of the Jedi. Doesn't belong on a 100 greatest films list. If we're going individual, now if you were gonna do the Star Wars OT as a whole, the three films, and just put them all three of them in a spot on a greatest list, I'm cool with that. When people do that, I'm cool with that. Same thing with like when people do Lord of the Rings and just do all three, that's fine because when you only have 100 spots, when you only have 100 spots, I think it's necessary for certain types of trilogies like those particular ones to be grouped together. Same thing with Indiana Jones. If you wanted to put Indiana Jones all in one, the original three, I'm cool with that. Even though out of each of those three trilogies, there's probably one that definitely wouldn't make the top 100 list, but Return of the Jedi would be the one for Star Wars. So I love the film, but I'm just gonna go ahead and say no, it shouldn't be on this list. 76, Arrival. Denis Villeneuve. Oof. That guy, okay, so this director he's changing the game film by film by film. This was one of them. Arrival, man, is one of the best sci-fi films ever made, okay? It's that simple. And, it's a newer films though, and that's my issue with this film, and it's not even I have an issue with it. It's just newer. It's not 10 years old yet. Is it? Actually, I think it is getting close to 10 years by now. So we're getting on that mark. I think it's 2013. Actually, let me look at that real quick. I don't even remember what year it came out in. But Arrival is easily it's 2016, so we're coming up on 10 years. So Arrival is easily one of the best films to come out in the last 10 years. And I gotta say, for its originality, every just the whole feel, look, vibe of this movie, I do think it does deserve a spot on this list. Now, because it's so new though, I would put it up a little bit higher, probably in like the 90-ish range, but can't knock him for having it on here. Great film. 75, A Quiet Place. I love A Quiet Place. This is such a good movie. Emily Blunt is one of my absolute favorite actresses right now. Um, but should this movie be on a top 100 list? I don't know. I'm probably leaning more towards no. Quiet Place is a banger though. I got this on Steelbook, man. I love Quiet Place. But I just don't know if this movie should be on 100 greatest films of all time list. This is another one. This movie's newer too. I think this movie's even newer than Arrival. So this is kind of a new movie. I don't know if it's been out long enough for us to really make that assessment. So I'm gonna have to say no on Arrival or not Arrival on A Quiet Place. 74, Train Spotting. Oh, this freaking movie. Young Ewan McGregor movie. I do like Train Spotting. Danny Boyle, man. Danny Boyle, good filmmaker. But Train Spotting, man, for me, I like Train Spotting, but as far as addiction movies, it's not one of my favorites. And I don't think it's the best film about addiction. I do think it does dive deep into the subject in a comedic way, and it's a very unique film. And I think it is cool. I think it's a staple in British cinema. But for me personally, Trainspotting, I don't think deserves to be on this list. But it's a good movie. I got this. I got this on Blu-ray too. So great film. 73, Mulholland Drive. Now, David Lynch, man, I love David Lynch. David Lynch is that guy. He's the man. But David Lynch, man, um, if we're putting one Lynch film on this list, if we're only doing one, they may have other Lynch films on here. I don't remember the whole list, but I'm not picking Mulholland Drive if we're doing one David Lynch movie. But I do think this is a very cool film. I think it's extremely well acted. Naomi Watts, phew, she was superb in this film. It's a very unique film. It's definitely a film you gotta watch more than once. Um, you know, see, as I think about this movie, it's hard to say it doesn't deserve to be on a 100 greatest films of all time list because to this day, I think this movie's 2000, um, maybe like 2001 or something. And to this day, no one's really seemed to be able to pull off the persona type vibe that Ingmar said back in the day, like this movie has. And a lot of people would argue that this is better than Persona. I would actually, even though Ingmar Bergman is one of my favorite freaking directors, I'd rather watch Mulholland Drive than Persona. So for that, I will say Mulholland Drive deserves to be on this list. 72, Rear Window. I'm gonna try and speed this up a little bit more. Rear Window, Jimmy Stewart, Alfred Hitchcock, one of the best movies, shot in one freaking room. You can't go wrong. Yes, it deserves to be on the 100 greatest films of all time list. 71, Up. Now, Up, man, if we're going Pixar, nah, kids movies, I do. I look at kids movies way different than I look at hero films. I think I typically like kid movies more than I like hero films, if we're gonna be honest. Up, if we're going a Pixar movie, Up wouldn't be my choice if we're only doing one. But if we're being honest, Pixar probably deserves at least 3 to 5 spots on a 100 list. I'm just gonna keep it real. And if I only got 3 to 5 spots, I'm not sure if Up is gonna make that for me. Up is an emotionally gripping movie, but I'm gonna have to pass on Up. 70, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Definitely one of the dopest animated films to come out in the last 10 years for sure. Love this movie. Super fun, super stylistic. It plays out like a comic book. It's a gorgeous film. I love this film. Um, this is another one that I think give it some more time, let it marinate a little bit. We can definitely have the conversation as to whether this should be in the best films of all time list, but it's still quite new. Um, and I'm really excited for the next one. So I don't know. I think we'll see what they do with the next one. I think that'll help us make a better, determination whether this should be on this list. So I'm gonna say no for now. This is a to be determined. 69 and Glorious Bastards. Oh my lord, everyone loves this movie, right? This is one of Tarantino's most fun, like definitely one of his most fun movies. Playing with the narrative, changing stories as he does, because that's what Quentin does. And I love that about Quentin. I love when Quentin changes stories. I think it's cool. That's what art's for. That's the beauty of art. That's why we make films. So there's no movie like this, man. This movie is definitely one of a kind. I'm gonna go ahead and say yes. I think Inglourious Bastards should be on this list. At 69, though, I think it needs to be up a little bit higher, maybe somewhere towards the 80s. I think it's a little high for it. 68, Lady Bird. Mm. This film has been blowing up. First things first, shout outs to Greta Gerwig. I love Greta Gerwig. She is absolutely amazing. She's one of the best, directors coming out with heat in the last 10 years for sure. Lady Bird was a good movie. I really like Lady Bird a lot. Um, but I definitely don't think it's one of the best movies of all time. I think there's way, way, way better coming of age stories. I actually think there's better coming of age stories that came out recently. I would personally put Perks of Being a Wallflower in here over Lady Bird if we're just talking a coming of age story. Lady Bird is a good movie though, man, and it's packed with some great performances. Love the film, but I don't think it deserves to be on this list, especially not at 68. 67, Singing in the Rain. Now, I'm not a big musical guy, and I will be honest. I got tons of musicals on my list to watch, but I have to get my musical game up. But I have seen Singing in the Rain, and it is a great film, and I fully, fully understand its influence. I mean, just freaking watch that Babylon movie Damien Chazelle just did. Um, I do think Singing in the Rain deserves to be here. Gene Kelly, hey, such talent, man. I just don't understand how these people could do so much. It's so impressive to me. So I'm gonna say yes, Sing in the Rain deserves to be here. 66, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Now, this movie here won the Big Five. I saw this movie when I was like 18 or maybe 17, and I thought it was a very powerful film. I thought Nurse Ratched was one of the most evil people ever. Jack Nicholson, great performance. Everybody in this movie was top notch. You got a young Christopher Lloyd. You got tons of great, everything going on in this film. Everything's great in this movie. It all works. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say One Flew the Cuckoo's Nest definitely deserves to be in here. Finally, one thing this list is missing is it's missing heavy on the international films, and the international films they do have, they're all quite cliche, but this is a cliche one that is definitely deserving to be on this list. Number 65, Seven Samurai, one of the best movies ever made, and it's Akira Kurosawa is one of the greatest filmmakers of all time. He is the man, so this is an easy yes. And it should be higher, honestly. This should probably be, somewhere in the 30s. All right, 64, La La Land. Now, we were just talking about musicals. La La Land I have seen as well. I really like this director. I like Chazelle a lot. He's great. La La Land is a great movie, but it's absolutely not one of the best films of all time. 63, Get Out. This movie's been making waves. It's definitely been gaining a better and better reputation as it's getting older, even though it came out with a lot of buzz off the rip. So, uh, Get Out. I love this movie. I cheered when I was watching it. I think what Jordan Peele did here was game changing, and I definitely think he set a standard and elevated horror and helped to propel the genre. So, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say Get Out deserves to be on a list. Not this high though. Get Out should definitely be somewhere in the 80s, 90s range. 62. Woo! Lawrence of Arabia. This movie right here is, guys, all I'm gonna say is if you ain't seen this movie, watch this movie. Yes, it deserves to be on the best movies of all time list. Yes, it is way too low. This movie should definitely be somewhere in the top 20 range. 61, Pan's Labyrinth. Guillermo del Toro is one of the best filmmakers we got right now, one of the most unique creative guys, visionary. Absolutely, this film I do think deserves to be on this list. Adult fairy tale, something for us adults to have fun with. You know, um, yeah, absolutely. 60, Hot Fuzz. Man, Hot Fuzz is one of my favorite Edgar Wright movies. I think Hot Fuzz is freaking hilarious. That's me personally. It's This movie would probably go on one of my favorite films lists. I do love Hot Fuzz, but it does not deserve to be in a top 100 list, especially not at 60. 59, Moonlight. Now, Moonlight is definitely one of those new films that absolutely, I think, has earned its spot already in one of the best films of all time lists. This is another film under 10 years old. Like, gosh, man. I've seen this movie quite a few times. I own this on Blu-ray as well. I've seen this quite a few times, and this movie, every time I just get locked right in, and it's such a good story. It's such a powerful story, and I think it's a film that everybody needs to watch at least once. So yes, Moonlight, I will say, should be on this list. 59, I actually like it there. I would maybe move it up a little bit, but I like it at 59. 58, Guardians of the Galaxy, another hero film. A good one. I like Guardians. I saw it when it came out. I saw it at a midnight premiere on Thursday. I was hella hyped for it. Um, I had a great time with it. It's a fun movie, but no, it's not one of the best films of all time. I'm sorry. 57, Blade Runner 2049. Now, this is a new film that I think is undisputable one of the best films of all time. I watch this movie all the time. I'm not gonna lie. I watch this movie almost once a month. I'm not even kidding. I may not watch all of it when I put it on, but I'll watch at least, an hour and 45, 2 hours. Like, it's kind of long. But every now and then, about once a month, I get in a Blade Runner 2049 mood. Right before I go to the gym, I throw this movie on while I'm getting ready and watch it. So, yes, I'm going to go ahead and say we're talking about Denis again. He's the man. He's one of the best filmmakers right now. 56, The Social Network. Finally got a Fincher film. I'm pretty sure it's the first Fincher film on this list. And it's the right one. If I know I don't, like I said, I don't remember every movie on this. I'm pretty sure Seven's gonna be on here later, so don't you worry, you're gonna get your Fincher fix. But Social Network blew me away. A movie about Facebook. This movie was absolutely amazing. Who would have thought a movie about a social media network would be so good? Social Network, definitely one of the best films ever made. It's been over 10 years now. I think it stood the test of time. It is definitely in this list, and I like where it's at 56. 55, Taxi Driver. All right, I'm going to go ahead and make this really brief because I could talk about Taxi Driver for hours. This is one of my favorite movies. This is one of the best movies ever made. This deserves to be on this list. This movie should be actually probably in the top 15 somewhere. So, yes, you guys got this in the wrong spot, but yes, it deserves to be on this list. 54, Saving Private Ryan. Ryan, sorry. Saving Private Ryan, probably the biggest robbery in Oscar history. Well, that's okay because people are still talking about this movie. Clearly, it's on this list. Nobody's talking about Shakespeare in Love. Saving Private Ryan, great film. One of the best war movies ever made. It's not my favorite war movie. It actually probably wouldn't even be in my top 5 favorite war movies. I think there's other war movies that aren't going to be on this list that should be on this list, but that's okay. As I'm going through this list, these are popular films. These are more popular films. These are films that a lot of people have seen. Um, I'd say your average guy could go through this list and probably could definitively say he's seen probably 40 to 60% of this list just by going through it. Saving Private Ryan is one of those films. Yeah, it's kind of hard. It's one of the greatest American movies ever made. We'll go ahead and say it deserves to be on this list. I'd probably move it up higher though. 53, Forrest Gump, back to back. Tom Hanks. Forrest Gump is. It's hard to say it's not one of the best movies of all time, just for its pop culture references alone. I mean, the reputation's just gain and gain and gain. It's a generational film. It's a film everyone's seen. It's universally loved. You could throw it on anytime, and anybody in the room is going to sit there, watch it, quote it. So, yes, I think it does deserve to be on this list. 52. This is insane. Point Break. Point Break. Another movie I got on Blu-ray that I love. But guys, let's keep it real. We all know that Point Break should not be on the greatest films of all time list. I could easily, if you say this is one of your favorite movies because you and your buddy watched this movie back in 94 freaking 100 times, no problem. Totally get that. This is not one of the greatest films ever made. Keanu Reeves' acting alone cannot put this on a greatest of all time list. But it's a fun film. Love Patrick Swayze. Love Gary Busey. But it does not deserve to be on a list like this, guys. But I do love the film. 51, Whiplash. A lot of Chazelle on this, man. Like a lot of newer movies on this list. I'm shocked at how modern this list is. Chazelle is absolutely amazing, and I think this is his best movie. Whiplash is, when I tell you, when I first watched this, I think it came out 2014. I was watching it while I was doing some homework for a college class, and I was like, "Holy hell!" I stopped writing my paper, and I was just locked into this crap, man. I was so intense. Like I think at one point I started sweating while I was watching it just from watching the movie. It was insane. So this movie is definitely one of the best movies to come out in the last 10 years. Um, I'm gonna go ahead and say it does deserve to be on this list because in another 10 years, people are gonna go ahead and be like, "Yeah, Whiplash is still one of the best movies about music ever made." So yeah, guys, let's go ahead and take a little intermission, take a little break. Um, First things first, if you have made it this far, I mean, you might as well like and subscribe if you haven't already. I appreciate you if you have made it this far. I enjoy doing this. This is fun. Um, Guys, help me out. I appreciate that. Uh, while we're here on an intermission, I got a streaming recommendation for you guys. And I don't know if you guys are into animated movies, but I got an anime film for you. It's called Weathering with You, 2019, directed by Makoto Shinkai. This is a beautiful anime romance film, but it's very unique. It's the same director who did the movie Your Name a few years ago. That was a pretty popular movie. It dropped. I think it's like the third or fourth highest grossing anime movie of all time. And I think Weathering with You is like the seventh. So if you haven't seen this, it's really good. If you're a fan of beautiful art, visual style, check this film out. Okay, check it out. It's streaming right now on HBO Max. Okay. All right, guys, let's get into the top 50. All right, number 50, Vertigo. Easily one of my personal favorite films, probably my top 10, honestly. Um, one of Hitchcock's best. Definitely deserves to be on this list, should be higher. Spirited Away, 49. Spirited Away. Now, when it comes to Hayao Miyazaki films, bruh, he has so many good ones. It's like, it's hard to, if you're only putting one on a list, it's hard to pick one. But Spirited Away is the safe pick, and I understand why they picked that, so I'm cool with that. That can stay. 48, Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters is another one of them. It's like kind of like Groundhog Day when we talk about Bill Murray. Classic Bill Murray film. Love it, funny as hell, but I don't know if I will put it on my personal greatest of all times list, but I could easily see it being on your personal favorites. So I'm gonna go ahead and say no on that one. 47, Do the Right Thing. Easily one of the best films ever made. Easily one of my favorite films. I love this movie. Hella relevant till today. Um, even though it came out, I think it's 89. Man, this movie, you could watch it right now and it still rings heavy. And it's insane how, you would think with the amount of time that passes, this movie would be outdated, and it is for surely not. Number 46, Schindler's List. One of the saddest, most depressing movies I've ever seen, but one of the best active movies. And I think it's definitely one of Spielberg's best works. And it's a nice departure from what he was known for at the time. He dropped this in Jurassic Park in the same year. That's insane. So with Schindler's List, it definitely deserves to be on the greatest films of all time list. But it's one of the movies, man, you can only watch every few years because it's heavy, man. It's gonna make you cry. It's gonna break you down. 45, The Big Lebowski. All right, got another Coen Brothers film on this. I love The Big Lebowski, so funny. And if we're gonna put a comedy film on a greatest of all time list, this is one I'm cool with actually. The dude is one of the best characters we've ever had, so I'm gonna go ahead and say I'm totally cool with The Big Lebowski being on here. 44, It's a Wonderful Life. One of the best Christmas movies ever made. I love It's a Wonderful Life, and a lot of people actually don't like this movie. I've been hearing it lately, at least from the people I've spoken to about it recently. They say they don't like this movie, but I like this movie. Jimmy Stewart, one of my favorite actors. I think this is a great film. Highly influential film. So Frank Capra did his thing. I'm gonna say this deserves to be here. 43, There Will Be Blood. Come on, man. This movie is this movie is so legendary. This movie is so great. This is easily This is one of my favorite movies. Daniel Day-Lewis, Paul Thomas Anderson, two of the best to ever be involved in the industry. Paul Thomas Anderson, what he did with this movie, like he now I say he came into his own with Punch Drunk Love, but with this one, he said, I am here to stay. I'm a freaking filmmaker. And man, he made a statement with this film. This film should probably be way, way higher on this list, somewhere in the 20s. All right, 42, 12 Angry Men. Come on now. One of the best screenplays of all time. Sidney Lumet's film is just it's brilliant, okay? What he was able to do in one room with 12 guys was just absolutely amazing. This movie is just it locks you right in. Definitely one of the best movies of all time. Henry Fonda, A1. 41, Silence of the Lambs. We're starting to get into some that the top 50, we're starting to get into some that's hard to argue with. Silence of the Lambs, some of the best performances. I absolutely adore Jodie Foster in this movie. For some reason, I'm not the biggest Jodie Foster fan, but for some reason, Clarice, something about Jodie Foster in this movie is just striking, man. I just love her in this movie. I can't keep my eyes off of her. It's the accent, it's everything. She just played this role so well. And A Hop, come on, man. This dude was haunting, bro. He was absolutely brilliant in this movie. Definitely deserves to be on this list. 40, Citizen Kane. Now, I am going to have to spend just a little bit of time talking about this movie. Okay, Citizen Kane. I'm going to try and do this as quick as I can. Citizen Kane is another one of the movies like In the Mood for Love. I saw it a little bit later in life, after I'd already been watching a lot of films. I don't know why it just took me so long to watch it, especially with the reputation that it had. But when I finally watched this movie, I felt like I was mature enough. I felt like I was ready to watch this movie and appreciate it for the amazing masterpiece that I was about to see. And when I watched it, I fell asleep. I was that bored. I'm not gonna lie. I was quite bored watching this movie. But I did obviously. I finished it, and it was okay. It was okay. Um, I'd absolutely understand what it did for when it came out. Orson Welles to make a movie like this, I think he was like 27, 26. To make a movie like this at that age, absolutely impressive. Or I do personally believe Orson Welles is one of the best filmmakers and actors ever. I love Orson Welles. I just don't love this movie. Um, I understand why people talk about it the way they do, but I'm gonna tell you right now, Citizen Kane is definitely not one I would ever suggest to your average person. And I'm glad they have it at 40 on this list because it's on pretty much any list you're gonna look at, and it's usually in the top 3 or even 1 on most lists. And I just feel like that's just such an outdated mindset to have this movie at your number 1 or even in your top 5 because we know it's been way better films to come out since. Should it be on the list though? Yes, I'll say it can be on the list. Um, for what it did for cinema, the advancement of cinema. Yep, Citizen Kane deserves to be on the list. 39, Gladiator, Ridley Scott. Is this the first Ridley Scott movie we had on this list? Wow, if it is, holy hell, it took all the way to get all the way to 39. Well, Gladiator is a great film. Russell Crowe is a genius in it, and this movie always gives me chills. So, Gladiator, yeah, we'll go ahead and say it deserves to be on here, but I would probably move this up higher. All right, 38, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. My favorite Western and one of the best movies of all time. Easy. Clint Eastwood, he's the man. But my man Eli Wallach as Tuco is the real star of this show, baby. Sergio Leone, he's the man, yo. I don't care what nobody says. Spaghetti Westerns are amazing. Yes, this deserves to be here. And I'll actually do like it at 38. 37. 7. um, we got our Fincher movie. Um, hey, 7 is absolutely amazing. Dark, gritty, crime noir film. Morgan Freeman, Brad Pitt, they're amazing. Can't go wrong. Deserves to be on the list. 36, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. One of my favorite Jim Carrey performances. Not my favorite Jim Carrey performance, but I love the relationship between Jim Carrey and Kate Winslet character. They are freaking adorable in the weirdest way. I do love them in this film. I love this film, one of the most interesting science fiction dream movies ever. So, or memory movies, I should say. And yeah, I'll go ahead and say this movie should be on list. It's hard to deny a film like this, but I'll go ahead and say it. But I am like I'm conflicted, but I'm gonna go ahead and give it the yes. 35, The Shining. Everyone loves The Shining. The Shining, one of my favorite horror films. Stanley Kubrick was doing the Tarantino, way before he was doing it, changing up stories real crazy. This is a great film. I think everyone loves The Shining. I'll go ahead and say yes, it deserves to be on this list. 34. Whoo, Lord of the Rings, Two Towers now. Guys, I'm gonna just go ahead and probably lose some subscribers here, the few that I have, but Lord of the Rings aren't my favorite films. They're okay, but I will say I don't love the Lord of the Rings movies. It's just me, guys, and we're all entitled to our opinions. And I think Lord of the Rings. I think if you lump the three together, I'm cool with you putting them on a best of all time list because they do have their place in film history. They're very influential. They changed the game. So I can't deny that. I can't deny what they did for film. They're just not my favorites. I'm just not going to throw one on. But to have the Two Towers at 34 ahead of some of the stuff that's ahead of is just it's crazy to me. So let's just keep going. 33, Casablanca. One of the best love stories. One of the most quotable films, changed the game, made right in the heart of World War II. Humphrey Bogart, I mean, come on, what's not to love about him? And it's one of the best ever made. Definitely deserves to be on this list. All right, number 32, The Thing. Now let me show you what I already know. Freaking love Kurt Russell. Freaking love John Carpenter. Oh, great film. I This is one of them ones that this is a personal favorite of mine, but I just don't know if I will put The Thing on a greatest of all time list. I don't know. So I'm gonna go ahead and say no on The Thing, even though it's breaking my heart to leave it off because I love this movie. 31, Interstellar. one of the coolest sci-fi movies to come out in the last 10 years. Christopher Nolan put his foot down on this movie, and he made a great film. I love this film. It's really hard to say it's not one of the best movies of all time, just because I do believe it's the 2001 of its time. Um, but I don't think it's the best Christopher Nolan movie, or I don't even think it's in the top 3 best Christopher Nolan movies. I actually did Christopher Nolan ranked, so you can see where I had this movie at in there. But as much as I love Interstellar and as amazing as, and I think it's a great advancement for the visual effects of films, I'm gonna have to say no. 30, Heat, easy yes. Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, Val Kilmer, Tom Sizemore, killing it, killing it. This movie is one of the best heist movies ever made, and it has one of the best shootouts ever. Them guns sound real. You feel like you're there. Love this movie. Deserves to be on the list. Not this high though. Definitely not as high. Way too high for Heat. 29 Apocalypse Now. All right, man. Francis Ford Coppola, he deserves to have this movie on this list because this movie almost killed him. Uh, this is a great film. With everything that went wrong with this movie, it's amazing at how well this movie came out. I absolutely adore this movie. I think it's a total vibe. It's a long one if you watch the director's cut, but I think it's worth it, man. I think it's worth it. I love this film. Um, so I'm gonna say yes, it deserves to be on this list. I probably move it up a little bit, probably more towards the 50s, but great film. 28, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. This is my personal favorite Indiana Jones film. Um, I love this movie, but just like Star Wars, just like Lord of the Rings, like I discussed, I think they should all be lumped together because you know they're gonna have Raiders of the Lost Ark somewhere higher on this list. So I definitely think that they should all just kind of be lumped together, because especially when you're gonna have movies like the first Star Wars and Raiders of the Lost and the Fellowship of the Ring, they're all going to be really high up because they're going to be high on this list. So I just don't think it's fair we're taking away spots from. You could have many other films on this list that deserve to be here, but we can't put The Last Crusade here. We can't put that on this list. As much as I love The Last Crusade, it's such a great film. It can't be on this list. It can't. Not on its own. 27. Same thing. Return of the King. Same thing with The Last Crusade, like we just had. Return of the King is my favorite Lord of the Rings movie. I thought it was awesome. I did. That's the one I do actually like. It kept my my attention the best. The end is absolutely amazing. I do think it's a fire film. I do. I think Return of the King. If I was going to pick any one to be on here, I'm gonna pick Return of the King. But I do think we're taking a spot away from a movie when we could have just put all three of them together. So 26, Die Hard. Okay, Die Hard, one of the best action movies ever made. It showed an everyman doing some hardcore stuff, which was cool. We had a star born in Bruce Willis, and I love that. And I feel absolutely horrible for what Bruce Willis is going through right now. Feel for his family. Yes, this deserves to be here. But if you guys are fans of Die Hard, check out Hard Boiled from John Woo. Asian Die Hard. It's pretty badass. 25, Fight Club. This is an easy yes, okay? And I'm not gonna say anything more because we can't talk about this movie. All right, 24, Terminator 2, Judgment Day. One of the best movies ever, man. This movie is so good. I can watch this movie anytime. It's highly entertaining. It's highly rewatchable. It changed the game, and it looked so good for its time. This movie looked better than Morbius, and this movie came out before I was born. So that's just saying something. Yes, Terminator 2 deserves to be on this list. For me personally, I would probably keep the two Terminators separate because I do think they did two different things for film. So yes. 23, 2001. This is an easy pick for a yes. Obviously, this movie is gonna be on any list. If this movie isn't on your list of best movies ever made, um, I just I don't know what you're basing your list on. And it's not to even say 2001. I like 2001. I love 2001. I don't think it's not one of my personal favorites. But for what this movie did for cinema, it can't be denied. Okay. And this movie just looks freaking incredible. I still, to this day, it still blows me away how amazing this movie looks. 2001 is a definite masterpiece. All right. 22, Endgame. First of all, Endgame is not even in the top 5 best MCU movies, okay? So Endgame shouldn't be on this list at all, all right? It shouldn't be on this list at all. I'm sorry. Like, easily replace this with Batman Begins. 21, Alien. All right, we got our next Ridley Scott on here. Alien is absolutely one of the best movies ever made. Love it. One of the best monster designs of all time. Um, Sigourney Weaver killed it. Ridley Scott killed it. 2001, though, we wouldn't have Alien. The look of Alien, not the monster, but the look of the film, we owe that to 2001, you know? Number 20, The Matrix. I watched this movie about 150 times when I was a kid. One of my absolute favorites. Yeah, it's one of the best movies ever made. Changed sci-fi. Now, a lot of people argue that The Matrix isn't one of the best movies ever made because it had a lot of influences from other things. I don't think that's fair to knock this movie because of it drew inspiration. Everything draws inspiration from something. What the Wachowski sisters did here was something amazing. So give it up for them. 19, Inception. Freaking banger. I think it's Christopher Nolan's best film. And if we're going to put a Nolan film on this list, I do think this would be the one or should be the one probably. Uh, yeah, I'll feel safe saying that. It's not my favorite Nolan film. I think it's his best made film. It's not my favorite Nolan film, but I think it's his best made film. And if I was gonna put one and only one Nolan film on this list, I think it would have to be Inception. It was a game changer. So yes, but it is way too high up at 19. That is kind of ridiculous. 18, Parasite. Absolutely love this movie. Um, yeah, I love Song Kang-ho so much. He is one of my favorite actors. If you guys, I don't want to go on about this movie and about, I love Korean films, okay? And like, this guy is freaking amazing, okay? Snowpiercer, Thirst, this movie, like, dude, you gotta watch his films. He's absolutely amazing. And Parasite is one of the dopest movies I've ever seen, and it is one of the coolest movies to come out in the last, what? This movie's on like 5 years old. Parasite is freaking dope, man. Parasite's a cool ass movie, and it's very unique. It's very original, and it can't be denied. This is, if I feel probably the most comfortable saying Parasite deserves to be on this list out of any movie that's come out in the last 10 years. Yes, on Parasite. It's way high up at 18 though. 17, Aliens. Now, I think we could. The only reason I don't feel comfortable tying Aliens and Alien together is just because it's two different directors. That's the only reason. But I personally enjoy Alien more than Aliens. Um, you can't have one without the other. But I think Aliens is far too high on this list. It can be on here, I guess. I wouldn't put it on mine. I would put Alien on mine, but not this. I love Aliens though. Do not get me wrong. It's a great, great film, and it's one of the best sequels ever made. You know what? For that reason alone, we'll leave it on this list. But it's way too high. 16, Blade Runner. This is one of my favorite films. This is one of the best films. Leave Blade Runner right where it's at. 15, Jurassic Park. Another game changer from the game changing man, Steven Spielberg. He's one of the treasured gems. He's on this list a lot. Um, I mean, shoot, I think we've already gone through at least 4 of his films on this list, and for good reason. Okay, Jurassic Park. To this day, Jurassic Park. I watched Jurassic Park like 4 months ago. To this day, still looks so good. It's insane. So yes, Jurassic Park. I'm cool with that being on this list. For me, it's just really high at 15. 14, Godfather 2. Now you're speaking a little bit more of my language. Lot of blockbusters in the last few, and I'm cool with that, and I understand that. But The Godfather 2 is definitely one of the movies that I really do think deserves to be on this list. No arguing from me on here. This is one of the best sequels ever made. Robert De Niro, one of the best performances of all time. I love Godfather 2 more than 1 personally. That's just me. That's me. I would take 2 over 1 any day of the week. 13, Back to the Future. This is a great film, and I do think it's one of the best of all time, but 13 is just too high. Um, should it be on this list? This is a hard one. But only 100 spots though, man. For me personally, I would have to leave Back to the Future off the list, but I love this movie, man, and I feel awful saying this. 12, Mad Max Fury Road. Now, this is probably, I think, the most misplaced movie on this list. Everyone says it's the best action movie ever made. Everyone loves this movie. Everyone adores it. I'm in the minority there. I thought this movie was okay. Okay, I thought it was decent, but I do not think it's as good as everyone makes it out to be. I just don't. I love Tom Hardy. Furiosa's badass, but this movie was. I'm not gonna get into Mad Max. Mad Max is too new. Okay, I think there's been better action movies made in the last 3, 4 years than Mad Max. If you ask me personally, I don't think Mad Max should be on this list, and I definitely don't think it should be at number 12. Are you insane? 11, Star Wars. Yeah, Star Wars at 11. Star Wars, one of the most, literally, Star Wars may be the most influential film ever made. It's one of the best movies ever made. Um, I love this movie. I absolutely adore this movie. I can watch New Hope at any time of the week. Just like with the other movies I talked about, think it should be lumped with the other two together. And I think Star Wars as a OT trilogy should be in the top 10. 10, Goodfellas. Come on, man. This is the movie, bro. Martin Scorsese. He's been on this list a couple times. Probably not enough, but Goodfellas is easily probably the best mob movie ever made. It's so freaking great. It's so funny. It's so quotable. Such a good soundtrack. It's just so good. I could watch Goodfellas anytime. Joe Pesci just crawls under your skin in this movie. Goodfellas, I'm absolutely fine with it being at number 10. Number 9, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Not my favorite Indiana Jones movie. It's actually my third. I like Temple of Doom more than this. And just because I don't know, I just something about Temple of Doom and Last Crusade just so fun to me. And don't get me wrong, Raiders is great. I just think we should have lumped these all together. We wasted 2 spots on this list with Indiana Jones movies. I think they could have both been put together and put it like number 20 or something. So that's my opinion. But Raiders is highly influential. Without Raiders, we didn't get a lot of stuff that came. Big blockbuster setting, standard movie. So yeah. Number 8, Infinity War. Okay. If we're putting an MCU movie on this list, if I had to put one movie on this list, this would be the one I would put on this list. But I still wouldn't put this movie on a greatest of all time list because I just don't think a hero film like this deserves to be on here with the exception of 1 or maybe 2, and I think they're coming up. I love Infinity War. I think it's the best Marvel movie. Infinity War Infinity War had me in tears. I freaking loved it. I love Thanos in it. Josh Brolin brought something to the table that was just much needed for the MCU at that time. So great film. But I would leave it off the list. I'm sorry, but I do love it. 7, Pulp Fiction, one of the best movies ever made, one of the craziest screenplays ever made, and one of the biggest splashes on the industry. Easily deserves to be in the greatest films ever made. I don't know about a 7. Probably for me, it goes somewhere in like 20s. But I love this movie so much. 6, Jaws. Come on now. It's Jaws. Yes, it's one of the best movies of all time. Yes, it's a horror movie. And yes, it's freaking terrifying. And it set the blockbuster off. So for that, come on. Number 5, Shawshank Redemption. This is easily one of my personal favorite movies. It touches my soul every time I watch it. I can watch this movie all the time. I love this film. I'm glad they showed it some big love, putting it at number 5. I think this is still the highest rated film on IMDb. This is a universally loved movie, and putting this at number 5, I can't argue with you. But the lack of foreign films on this list is insane to me. And it's crazy that this is a UK based magazine and it still has a lack of foreign films. Not even many UK films on here. So I don't know. I love Shawshank so much, and I love some of these movies. But this is just nuts to me that the lack of foreign films. But yeah, Shawshank deserves to be on this list at 5. I can't even say I'm mad at it. Number 4, The Dark Knight. Is this and Batman Begins are the only two hero movies that I really would feel comfortable putting on this list. Um, Absolutely not at 4. That is insanity to me. I mean, Heath Ledger's performance, if you want to say it's a put it at number 4 in in the top 100 performances of all time, I can't argue with you there. But this movie it's great. I have my own personal biases, gripes, and things with this movie. And if you watch my Christopher Nolan ranked video, I go into more details about that. I'm not going to get into that here, but this is definitely one of the best hero adaptations you're ever going to see. And this without this movie and Batman Begins, and I will say Iron Man as well, they changed the game for what hero films are. So for that, I can't be mad that The Dark Knight is here. But for me, I would probably replace this with Batman Begins, but I can't be mad. Number 4 is ridiculous, though. Number 3, The Godfather. Yes, it deserves to be on this list. Number 3, sure, sure. I won't argue, man. I don't feel like getting crucified. Everybody loves The Godfather, and yes, it's universally loved. It's one of the best movies. Number 2, whew, hot take, The Empire Strikes Back. Now, this is personally literally this and Boogie Nights are my two favorite films. Like I'll tell you that any day of the week. I absolutely love The Empire Strikes Back. This movie kind of changed my life. I'm not gonna lie, this movie, like this and Boogie Nights, they opened the door for movies for me. And so for me on a personal level, this movie is gonna be in my top 3 if I make a personal favorite films list. But just like I said, as much as I love and adore this movie and I could watch it any day of the week and I could quote this whole film, I would have to lump this with the other two Star Wars and move it up much lower on the list. It would have to probably go somewhere in the like maybe 10, 9 or 10. I would probably have Star Wars. But it just Empire Strikes Back at number 2 on its own on a greatest films list is kind of crazy. It's actually not. It's not crazy, but it is. Um, I love it. For me, I love it. I think it's awesome because this movie. I just think this movie is freaking gold. It's a perfect film. But in the grand scheme of things, it is kind of crazy. But absolutely, it like I said, it deserves to be lumped with Star Wars greatest films. Number 1, dun dun dun. I can't really believe this. Is kind of crazy to me. Number 1, Lord of the Rings: The Fellowship of the Ring. This is nuts to me. I don't think this is the best movie ever made. Um, I think this movie should have been lumped with the other two. I think we had two other spots that could have gone to other films, and this should have been lumped with the other Lord of the Rings and probably put somewhere in the 40s or 50s. Okay, that's my personal opinion. I would have Fellowship, Two Towers, and Return of the King as one, probably in the between 45 and 65. That's just if I was making a greatest films of all times list. That's just me. There are things I like about this movie. I love all the stuff in the Shire. I think the first like 45 minutes of this movie is actually really awesome. And then it tapers off for me. It starts getting quite boring. But don't get me wrong, this movie is great in parts. This movie could have been great if it was cut down like you could cut 40 minutes off this movie. You could. 45 even, maybe even close to an hour. Um and I don't care what and like all the Lord of the Rings fans can come and cut my throat. That is totally fine. I'm just not crazy about this storyline. This is just not my personal cup of tea as far as stuff I get into. But I've watched these films multiple times. Okay. I appreciate them. I think they have their place in history. I think they have done a lot for film. And Peter Jackson, big hats off to him. These were insane achievements to pull off. I respect these movies very, very much. Okay. I'm not going to sit here and bash the Lord of the Rings because I don't hate them. I do respect them. They're just not my personal favorites. But I will say there are things I like about the Fellowship of the Ring. But I do think this movie, standalone at number 1, is insanely criminal. I just think it's absolutely nuts. That's just me. There wasn't one Ingmar Bergman movie on this list. There wasn't one Krzysztof Kieslowski movie on this list. There wasn't where it was the David they had one David Lean, sorry, I'm sorry, they had one David Lean movie on here, one David Lean movie, like, there was so many direct one Akira Kurosawa movie, like, there was no Park Chan-wook movies, like, the lack of foreign directors on this list was just mind-blowing, and the lack of foreign movies on this list was just mind-blowing. Like, I couldn't believe, like, there was no Federico Fellini movies, not one. That is crazy. Not even La Dolce Vita, like, not even 8.5. Like, I just can't believe that, like, so many like, because this is a reader's list and a writer's list, I just couldn't believe the lack of foreign films on this list. It's probably less than 20, which that's insane. You have Point Break on here, but Fanny and Alexander isn't on here. Like that's crazy to me. Um, so this list is just I mean, this list is it's not bad. Movies are subjective. Like I said before, movies are subjective, and whatever you want to say about film, you say it. Whatever movies you like, I don't knock it. If your favorite movie is Twilight, that's awesome. I got no problems with that. I've seen Twilight movies. I've seen a lot of different films. I haven't seen every film, but I've seen a lot of different types of movies. There's a lot of movies I like that, based on some of the things I've said about these movies on this list, you probably wouldn't think I like. Like Adam Sandler, I think is one of my favorite actors. He's amazing. He's funny as hell. And I'm not afraid or ashamed to say something like that. There's plenty of directors, and I like some Michael Bay movies. Okay, yep, I do. There's films I like that a lot of people wouldn't, you know, a lot of cinephiles and pretentious film people wouldn't want to admit that they like or watch or maybe have in their collection. I got plenty of films in my Blu-ray collection that people would be like, "Wow, I can't believe you own that." Yeah, I do, and I probably love it. So, but when it does come to greatest films ever made, when we're talking the greatest, when we're talking the best, the ones that shape the game, the ones that after you watch them, they leave you feeling a different kind of way. After you watch them, you felt like you've never seen something like that before. After you watch them, they leave a lasting impact on you. Like, there are so many films from around this planet that have come out that I've watched, that I know other people have watched, that struck a chord, that just hit harder than a lot of these American films I'm looking at on this list. And I think a lot of people, and because this is a UK-based magazine, so their readers are mostly gonna be probably from America, UK, English-speaking countries. Um, I do think a lot of people who aren't, who only watch, English language films are sometimes a little bit afraid to check out foreign language films because a lot of them don't wanna read. Guys, I'm telling you right now, the importance of foreign cinema is off the charts. You guys need to be watching foreign films. You guys need to be watching foreign films from all periods of time, from all different countries. You will learn so many new things. You will see different ways of life of people that you're not used to. It's absolutely amazing. It's my way of traveling around the world, and seeing different cultures. So I do think that is a very important thing. Whenever I do eventually make my best, greatest list, 100 for you guys, I'm gonna be honest. A lot of the films on it will not be from American made or English speaking countries. So I'm just gonna throw that out there. But guys, I had absolutely a blast going over this, doing this list. Reacting to some of these. I mean, hey, if you guys like this, there's tons of other lists I can go through and react to, and we can break down some of the other lists that other people made because other lists look totally different than Empire's list. There's other magazines and publications that made lists, and I we can go through them and break them down, guys. So I have no problems doing that. I had a whole lot of fun doing this, guys. So um, thank you guys for tuning in. If you did enjoy, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Drop in the comments. Tell me what you think about this list. Do you think it was good? Do you think it was bad? Do you think it was okay? What movies do you think should be left on? What movies do you think should be taken off? Whatever it is, guys. I will See you next week, and don't forget the popcorn.